Hey guys, what's going on? How are you? This is Word here, and welcome to Game 2 of this series. This is ZOTAC Cup, best of 3. Let's introduce our players. Currently up 1-0, the Blue Zerg playing for Team Liquid. He is Snute, after winning the match in Ohana. And after losing it, currently down 0-1, the red player for Acer, the red Zerg, he is Nerchio. Again, this is of course a best of 3, guys. This is from the ZOTAC Cup, a regularly held online European tournament. Last game we saw Nerchio go for some speedling aggression very early on, got a gas in a pool. Brought out like 20-some speedlings, 24. I could be remembering that wrong, but it was a large amount because Snute had 0. But with a very well-placed Roach Warren and Queens, he was able to keep the Lings out of his main. Actually didn't lose anything except for 10 drones, which is a pretty hefty amount. Not the damage Nerchio was looking to do, but it ended up evening up the game. Nerchio went into a Roach Hydra style with 2 evolution chambers, while Snute got 1 evo chamber, ended up with +2 and just kept massing roaches, and overran his opponent. Nerchio not too pleased about it, looking for revenge, and of course he will need to get that revenge if he's going to tie up this series. Of course, if he loses, he will be out 0-2. It is a best of 3. We are going to see him lay down his pool before hatch here in Entombed Valley. Very good decision. Relatively small map, especially in these spawning positions, as these players not quite gonna scout each other. I am gonna do a little bit of strobe action though. Let's not do that, that's annoying. And we're gonna see Nerchio laying down a gas as well, or not as well, but again, the same style that we saw on Ohana. How will it work here? Of course, he is going to know where his opponent's spawning. That's not going to be an issue. It's not like a 6 pool on a 4 spawn or a 3 spawn map, I guess, technically. Where you're like, oh, I'm going to play the guessing game. No, you'll know where he is. So the question is, how well can Snute sim city or defend on this map? It's going to be a lot harder. Number one, the ramp is completely exposed. You're not going to be able to get buildings up quickly enough. You're going to have to block the ramp with your queens, but Ohana is certainly the ideal map for holding something like this. And I'm sure Nerchio realizes that Snute's going to have a much harder time here. Now, in this case, Snute's actually going to scout it. He's going to see the gas. Last game he didn't. He only saw it with his scouting overlord when the Lings ran out onto the map. So he's going to have a little bit more time to prepare. Might even, maybe, just maybe, lay down a creep tumor so he can start getting a little bit of SimCity by his ramp. That would be a little rash, though. This is a lot of area to cover, so it can be a little bit more tough. This time he might maybe get a Spinecrawler on his main, try to pump out a few more Lings. He is going to get a gas of his own, not responding super emergency style, but of course he knows his timings. The Ling speed takes 110 seconds to research. Maybe he'll get enough gas for a Baneling Nest. That could be what he's thinking. I don't know the exact timing of how long it takes to get a Baneling Nest if you immediately saturate your first gas. But let's see if that's what Snute goes for. Generally, if you see that your opponent has gotten gas long before you in a ZVZ and you need to play defensive, you know you can't get speed as fast as he does, so you're going to be going for a Baneling Nest and just trying to beat him in that regard. Because otherwise, if you try to go for speed, he's just going to have more Lings than you. His Lings are going to be more mobile. It's generally not pretty. We are going to see 8 Lings coming in here for Nerchio. He's got his spot on with the Overlord. He's scouted the hatchery. Doesn't know about the gas of Snute, and I do feel like we're going to see a Baneling Nest go down right about now-ish. Otherwise, it can be a little bit scary. Looks like Snute is going to be laying down a Spinecrawler. Definitely going to need one of those, and he's just massing up the gas, so it looks like he's actually going to be going for... Okay, no. We do see the Baneling Nest going down. He wanted to make it part of his Sim City. Very good. And he's left 1 drone in gas. With a little bit banked up, he's going to be able to get a fairly good amount of Banelings. 2 or 3 should be enough to hold this, but of course it is going to depend on each player's micro, which can be pretty darn scary. Those Ling Baneling situations, very, very tense. We're going to have to count on these players to micro their hearts out. Spinecrawler is going to be up. Not the most useful against Lings, but it certainly helps. If this were a Ling Baneling attack, of course, it'd be very beneficial for targeting down the Banelings. But it looks like Nerchio is here. He scouts the Baneling Nest. He knows Snute can't morph in any Banelings now. The Ling count currently 16 to 24 in favor of Nerchio. But with the help of these Queens, with the help of the Spinecrawler, as long as these Lings don't get up the ramp, Snute really shouldn't have a problem holding them off. We have Banelings coming in now. Nerchio going to get a Baneling Nest of his own. He's certainly going to need it if his opponent decides to follow up with counter speedling Baneling aggression. And also, if Nerchio wants to continue to be aggressive and poke at his opponent, he's going to need Banelings as well. He certainly can't do it without them. Speedlings are no speedlings. 1 little contact, and you are going to be in a very rough position. So now we're going to see a relatively aggressive early game here. Nerchio coming in with these Zerglings. Got to be so careful, though. This is a relatively tight area here. And this is where Nerchio is going to be trying to charge in. He doesn't want to go around the top of the hatchery because it's very likely he's going to get trapped on this side. So he wants to try to charge in here, and that's why Snute is positioned the way he is. He's got lings on the top of this ramp in case they manage to focus down a queen or manage to slip by due to misplacement. He's got his area covered. Nerchio's going to keep laying on the aggression. Not sure how well it's going to work here, though. He's getting some banelings of his own, and that's going to change quite a bit, but I'm actually not sure whose baneling got picked off there. I'm going to assume it was Snute's because we don't see any here for Nerchio. He is morphing in someone. I'm just not sure where they are. Oh, okay, they're morphing over on the right side. So yeah, that was definitely Snute's baneling that got picked off, and here it comes. Snute gonna have to be very careful. Managed to focus down 2 of the banelings immediately with the queens, and oh, 2 banelings for 3 is a pretty good trade, and look at those surrounds and those queens. These are gonna go down so quickly. Good transfusions. Oh my god, he's actually gonna manage to save. No, okay, they do go down, but oh, a baneling for about 10 zerglings there. A very good pick for Snute, and he knew Nerchio was gonna be going for those queens, and Nerchio thought he could get away with it, but Snute did have a baneling there just in time. Now, if that baneling did not hit, Snute would be in trouble with only a couple banelings right now, a few zerglings, but now he's defended. He's fine. Nerchio adding on 3 gas, probably going to be transitioning into Mutas here. He doesn't have a Roachworn down quite yet, and generally if you're adding all 3 of those gas on, you do go into Mutas. Could go into Roach Infester, and oh, you know, actually he is upgrading the +1 on his Evolution Chamber, so it looks like he probably is going to be going for Infester. You see the Roachworn, never mind, I spoke too soon. I was going to say, if he's got that +1 melee upgrade, then oh, Baneling, then yeah, he's going to be going for Mutiling, but not in this case. Ooh, pretty good baneling hit there. 5 links going to go down. Definitely going to need to back off, though. We actually don't have speed researched here at all for Snute. We saw the same thing last game. He just powered up into Roach production. And it looks like he's going to be doing a similar thing here. Of course, the Zerglings do become more and more useless the more Roaches get on the map. They're good for counterattacks and run-bys, which is why it goes into the super late game. You are going to want speed. Cracklings, Speedlings, regardless of which one you have, preferably the Cracklings, but it's going to be good for picking off hatcheries if your opponent's army is, like, right over here. Or it probably wouldn't be there. Hold on, let's be more reasonable. It's going to be somewhere like here. He's going to take a 4th. You go ahead and Speedling run by your way around the map. And, wow, that's moving way faster than I'm used to it moving. What's wrong with me? We are going to see Nerchio do something similar right now. In fact, the exact same thing. Speedling run by while Snute's army is out of position. Going to force a cancel on this hatch. Yeah, it's definitely going to be canceled. Good baneling hit there, though. And, oh, is he going to hit it? And does manage to get it. And most of those lings do get cleaned up. Very good, though, from Nerchio managing to focus down that drone. Snute's going to come in here. He scouts. Does he scout the Roachworn? Yeah, he has seen it, so he knows what he's up against. Has he scouted all 4 gases? That's going to be a pretty key piece of information. We have all 4 here for Snute as well, so I do expect, let's see, do we have double Evo chambers for both these players? Only 1 for Snute, yet again, Nerchio with the 2 of them just like before. So, I mean, with 3 hatches, he can definitely power out a lot of Roaches with the 4 gases. But it is going to start to pile up, and you see that Snute does have like 400 in the bank. Once the larva pop, he can dump it into a lot of Roaches, but he's going for another mass Roach style. And here we are going to see this run by happening yet again. If these were Speedlings, would have gotten here quicker, but Nerchio is going to be able to save this. Doesn't look like he should have to cancel. His Roaches are pretty much in position. They are pretty slow, though. Maybe if Snute is a little fancy with the micro. No, it looks like it is going to survive for now. Now, if Snute did have speed, again, he still doesn't research it. He might be able to try to pick that off later in the game with a Speedling run by, but it's just not going to work in this case. Nerchio is going to be extra defensive, and by the time that Snute attacks again, these rocks are probably going to be down. Snute did manage to get his down, going to be saturating the space up. Both these guys just getting their Roaches up, and Snute's style of play is interesting. It really won there in the early game push, but the longer this game goes on, the less powerful that style is going to be. So, I mean, Snute knows it. He knows he has to do damage. He's massing up these Roaches. We have 8 more coming out for him. Nerchio massing up as well. What has he actually scouted? If we take a look, I don't think he's brought an Overseer in at all. Doesn't have confirmation on this 3rd, but he knows his opponent's going for it. So he doesn't know whether or not his opponent's actually going to be dumping gas into Infestors, or if he's just going to go into power Roach production. And it caught him off guard last time. He was caught in the middle of a Hydralist transition. Snute going to be coming in here and looking for it. Actually does manage to get a Contaminate on the main lair there. Pretty good, but it looks like Nerchio with a defensive concave is in a pretty good position. His 1-0 is complete. His Carapace upgrade going to complete as we look. It looks like we got 3 seconds left, and Hatchery, or Evolution Chamber, you have done your job. Kind of cool to catch it. It's like seeing a rainbow start or something like that, or seeing a clock turn exactly to 12 o'clock, that sort of thing. Pretty cool. Now, obviously we saw Nerchio not kill any drones with that early aggression. The only drone he's killed was the initial drone he denied from this hatchery. So it set him back a little bit, but Snute, I mean, okay, never mind. Hold on. The engagement's gonna be coming here. I'm gonna theory craft a little bit in just a second, but Snute gonna be coming in here, trying to get in from 2 angles. It's very hard to attack on Entombed Valley. It's very easy to get a concave when you have your units up here, and it's very easy to get forced into said choke. So Nerchio going to be retreating, going to be losing some roaches in the meantime. Still, do we have any Hydra Den for either of these players? Nope, just creep tumors for Snute is the only difference because, again, he is going for that creep spread. Now, with this style, now that I think about it, it absolutely makes sense. He is being aggressive. And can't even count if he has more or not. It's very similar to the kind of Muta style that we've been seeing a lot in ZVZ lately, both in Heart of the Swarm and in Wings of Liberty, but definitely in Heart of the Swarm more. Just mass mutas. Who's flapping more wings, as In Control put it on State of the Game? And it's hard to tell. It's very hard to tell. So right now, it's just a little bit tough to attack, and both these players are kind of stuck in a transitional period now, or a non-transitional period. They want to transition, but they just don't know if the other person's going to flood them with roaches, so they both have to make more and more roaches until somebody's going to get a good enough trade-off or somebody's going to take a chance. Now, we see Snute is going to be coming in here. Concave isn't really an issue here because all these roaches are firing at the same time. Is Snute going to overrun Nerchio again? Nerchio is 2-1, Snute 2-0, so there's a slight upgrade disadvantage for the Norwegian player. But the defender's advantage is there for Nerchio as well. Snute, however, is coming up in supply. Is he going to be able to roll over his opponent this time? The roaches are thinning out. I think Nerchio's going to be able to hold it just barely, just by the skin of his teeth. We have 30 roaches coming up here for Snute, and the first wave has been held off, but will the second wave be able to be knocked back by Nerchio? It's going to be tough. It's going to come here sooner and sooner with this creep spread from Snute, which with this style, like I said before, now I get it, and I very much like it. And you see he's dumping a lot into roaches here. The drone count very low for both these players because they're both playing the same style because it's the only way to defend it. Snute's being aggressive here. Nerchio can't transition to anything. He can't go into infestors. He can't go into hydras. He needs all of his gas for his roaches. And if he's going to slowly start moving into gas now. But if he makes more gas, pulls those 6 drones off of minerals, he just might have less roaches than his opponent, and it's a little bit tough. Now, what I was talking about like 5 minutes ago, 5 real minutes, I feel like, the theory crafting, Nerchio didn't do a lot of damage, but I don't feel like Snute capitalized on it, really. He didn't have much of a choice. I mean, he got those queens picked off, which was actually pretty good for Nerchio, but Snute did have those extra queens for the creep spreading, so it wasn't the biggest deal in the world. But since Snute skipped speed, he didn't have any options for link aggression. So I don't necessarily blame him for it. It's his style of play, so he can't really capitalize on the fact that Nerchio's initial aggression failed. He went right into roaches instead, but that's just why. That's one thing I want to mention at the start of this game. Like, we saw Nerchio invest quite a bit, not do a lot of damage, but that's why Snute really wasn't able to punish him for it. Now, here's where we see the creep might be a disadvantage. In this case, we pretty much have dead-even armies. Nerchio ahead by a single roach. Will it matter that much? I doubt it. However, these upgrades might come into effect. 2-2 for Nerchio. Only 2-0 for Snute. His 2-1 is going to finish relatively shortly, though. And, of course, as long as he stays on top of this ramp, he's going to have a pretty good concave. Looks like he has started to switch into Hydralis. Doesn't have a lot of supply left for them, and they are getting focused down rather quickly. All the roaches for Nerchio firing. He definitely has a very good concave against his opponent, Snute, here. The roach numbers are so big for Snute. These Hydras are firing in the back, doing some good damage. And the upgrades are now not that different with that +1 Carapace being completed. And it looks like, again, we are going to see a big roach trade with the defender's advantage seeing through for the home base player. And again, more and more roaches and hydras coming out for these players. 2-1 on Snute, 2-1 on Nerchio. Nerchio going to pull back. His upgrade's not quite doing it. The defender's advantage pretty much just equating that. This creep is going to start giving Nerchio momentum soon now, though. But these trades are so even, it almost doesn't matter. Snute is in a very good defensive position. That's a huge first volley to get off on those roaches now. And of course, he's got the benefit of its spine crawler, the transfuses at home. It's very obvious why Snute is winning these battles. Now, what is Nerchio transitioning into? Is he transitioning at all? If we take a look, okay, he does have a Hydralis Den. Doesn't have the groove spines, though. He is starting to produce Hydras now, but of course, Snute's going to have the benefit. Those groove spines, I mean, it's only one range, but it's so important. Otherwise, your roaches or your Hydras are just going to be stuck behind your roaches, not firing. It's very, very beneficial to have that. Game-changing. Very, very much so. Almost as important as the Thermal Lance on Colossi. I say almost. Not quite. But in terms of ZVZ, yes, this is the Thermal Lance of ZVZ. We're going to see the fourth base coming up for both these players about the same time. Drone count 60 to 58. Snute ahead by only 2. Not a big deal. And now we do see actually Infestors are coming out here for Snute. Infestors, pretty big deal in ZVZ. Get the big fungal on the roaches. You can add Infested Terran DPS to the battle, of course. Infested Terran's not as good since they no longer benefit from those ranged upgrades. So fungals are probably going to be more important here, but they're good for other reasons. They're good for tanking. They suck up a lot of those Hydra and Roach volleys. And, I mean, if you have somebody who has Roach Hydra and somebody who has Roach Hydra Infestor, the Infestor player is going to win. Usually. It's just how it's going to work. It depends how the supply is spaced out, what the upgrades are, stuff like that, whether he chooses to fungal, whether the Infested Terrans go off too early, whether they go off too late. A lot of factors. It's not something I really need to say. That sort of thing is very obvious. He is coming in here with an Overseer. Not necessarily needing to clear out the creep. It certainly helps because his opponent, while it is giving him a nice little speed boost, it's giving Snute vision. So you don't necessarily want it there. But the Overseer also there to make sure no burrow shenanigans can happen with the roaches. If we take a look, we see actually neither of these players have upgraded burrow. Do we have an infestation pit for Nerchio, though? Take a look at our handy structures tab. The answer is no. And the infestor count for Snute is up to 5, setting up a pretty defensive concave here. 4th base up for these guys. It's starting to get getting drawn out, but both these guys are staying on Lairtech. We're not going to see, if you watch the GSL at all, we saw some Infestor Broodlord versus Infestor Broodlord action. It doesn't look like we're going to see that this game. I feel like it's just going to play out Roach Hydra, Roach Hydra. Neither of these players is looking to go into Hive Tech. It's a very vulnerable stage to be. They did manage to transition into Hydralisks and Infestors, but now it looks like the aggression is going to be coming down. Here we go. The engagement going to be happening. Fungal's going down. Not hitting a lot of these units, though. There we go. The Hydra's going to start taking some damage. Snute, however, is dropping in supply. The Hydra count for Nerchio huge. He's able to eat through a lot of this. Are the Fungals going to be enough? The Roach is starting to thin out for Snute. Both these players remaxing as quickly as they can, but it looks like with the help of the Infestors, he's going to clean up this push, but Nerchio actually managed to pick off 3 of those Infestors, I think. Yes, only 2 remain. He's going to be annoying with these roaches, send them in the main, pick off some drones, maybe try to catch a hatching infestor or 2. That'd be very good for him. Behind this, massing up more roaches and hydralisks. And the roaches have been dealt with. Again, still no burrow. So the roaches can't be super duper annoying, just super annoying. Nerchio's taking a small supply advantage here, and these are the things that tend to snowball in mirror matches. Upgrade still at 2-1. Snute's got the level 2 Carapace on the way, but it's about 70 seconds from finishing. That's a pretty big window for Nerchio to get in there and try to do some damage. And he should take advantage of that window. He knows he picked off a decent chunk of Infestors. He very likely checked that Snute was 1 upgrade behind him. So while the Infestor count's low before they can gather a lot of energy, it's probably the best time to move in, but it looks like he's playing defensive. A little bit scared, not sure what the exact numbers are. Of course, it's very easy for me to say this, but there's always a little bit of doubt in the player's mind. You never know what your opponent has. Maybe he just had a bunch of Infestors hatch right after that battle. You're going to go in there, get fungal, get caught. Oh, it's scary, especially in these mirror matchups. 1 screw-up can just really end the game for you. We do see Nerchio adding in Infestors now. So we're going to have similar compositions. In fact, identical compositions. But Nerchio's maxed out and Snute is not. Not maxed out. So pretty good trades here for Nerchio. Transition catching Snute a little off guard, so he had a little too many spellcasters as opposed to actual meat of an army, which allowed Nerchio to get this little bit ahead. But these things do snowball, as I've said. We'll see if Nerchio can take advantage of it. Maxed out. Of course, Snute is approaching it. The Infestor count is huge, absolutely massive. So much of his supply is in Infestors. We have 15, 16 Infestors here. That is 32 army supply in spellcasters. And, the Infested Terrans, the Fungals, are going to help a lot, but sometimes it's really just quantity over quality. And especially with Zerg, this rings true. Getting those Hydras in the back, Roaches in the front, trying to move in with a concave advantage. And the further back you push your opponent, unless they go up the ramp in Entombed Valley, the more concave you're going to get. Now we are going to see the Fungals go down for both these sides. The Hydra count right now for Nerchio is pretty large, 14 to 10. And that is quite a reasonable difference here. Snute is getting laid down, and now all of a sudden, all he's got left are these Infestors. Not a lot of army on the ground. Drops out a lot of Infested Terran eggs. But with a pretty high Hydra count, he can try to focus those down. Is going to back off, let that go. Because Nerchio knows he took out a lot of army. He's got a supply lead. And as long as he keeps macroing up behind this, it's going to remain that way. We see Snute is trying to transition into a hive. He was using those Infestors to try to hold it down, but he didn't have quite enough energy to make the transition viable. And Nerchio attacked at pretty much a perfect time. Now, it's looking very much in the Red Zerg's favor. The upgrades are identical now, with the army supply 126 to 94. That is enough for Nerchio to take a win if he decides to push in. If he lets Snute max out, that could be trouble. The Infestor's only going to gather more and more energy, but no, he is going to be pushing in now. Can Snute hold here? If he can hold, he'll have Hive Tech up. He can get his 3-3 upgrades, but Nerchio knows this is a perfect time to attack. He's coming in. The Infestor is trying to drop down some Fungals. They don't have a lot of energy left after that last battle. The Concave is really good for Nerchio. A ton of Hydralisks firing, and it looks like with Snute down to 66 army supply, his opponent doubling him. These Infestors probably not going to be able to escape the Speed Roaches and the Hydras on creep. Snute is pretty much going to lose everything on the low ground, and there it is. GG. Nerchio is going to tie this up 1-1. We're going to go to a Game 3 between these players. A very interesting aggressive style from Snute. Worked out well in the first game. Not so much this one because Nerchio had a read on it. Will he change it up in Game 3? Let's go find out.